All right, friends, it's the start of a new year. We are entering 2024. And if you have been putting off getting your finances together and making sure that you were prepared for taxes last year, why don't you make it a resolution to get your shit together this year? 2024 is your year. Do it. Let's do this. Get in touch with Molly Morris at m3virtualaccounting.com. Set up a completely free consultation. Talk to Molly about what you're looking for, and she will find a way to help you within your budget. She's amazing. Get in touch again for free at m3virtualaccounting.com and make 2024 a little bit less stressful than last year.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, covering A Song of Ice and Fire. To the co-host switcheroo, the rereading Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, 2 out for TV, greeting you the greatest hits from blah, 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 blah. In this episode, we are covering A Dance with Dragons, chapters 20 and 21, in which we've got some more good news. Just kidding. Lots of bad things. Men full of pus. Being tortured, starvation, tough choices, you know, the usual. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now, kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right. So, here we are.
Here we are. Some things are happening. They are not necessarily good things, but they're things, and they're definitely happening. So, you know, there's that. We got that going for us.
Sean is trying to keep from making Ryan Reisman cry again because he was so offended.
I meant to go look for that post. I still didn't see it, but part of me doesn't want to see it. I don't want to make anybody sad.
It's unavoidable. When you're covering anything, you never are going to have the reactions that everybody wants you to have every time.
Guys, I'm trying so hard. You know that, right? Y'all know that I'm really, I am really trying to just keep an open mind and to leave a spot in my spirit open to be amazed and enthralled. You know, I'm waiting. I'm here. And I have been told on good authority that there are still many moments left in this book that will surprise and amaze. You know, so I'm not, the whole endeavor is not, you know, written off just yet. So fear not, friends. I just, you know, I get a little worn down. And your girl needs like a little bit of a reprieve every once in a while. And it's just been,
yeah.
I feel like I am on one of those long treks that George likes to describe, you know, like I am just wandering through the wilderness.
And you keep thinking that you see the thing right ahead, but then there's an unfordable stream.
Yes.
And you've got to go like 6 miles around in the other direction and come back out. And yeah.
That is how I feel. I just, you know, I'm a little, what did we call it? I'm road weary.
Yeah.
That's all, friends.
So on that note, Reek.
Yeah, this was something.
Yeah, what did you think of this? Because, it's not Reek getting tortured or anything, which is great.
It wasn't, it's funny. I will always have to be reminded of how much influence small moments on the show have over me, have such a lasting impact. The Reek chapters in the books, and you've mentioned this to me a couple of times, it's not that they're like graphic 30-page long bits of, torture, but the way it was done on screen makes me feel like that's what I'm going to get every time we get a chapter, even though, if I'm being honest, the Reek chapters don't actually give that,
Yeah, very much.
But I'm so like conditioned. That's what I expect every time I see his name at the beginning of a POV. I really liked this chapter.
Nice.
And it wasn't that it was good news that made me happy.
It's compelling, though. This is one of the most memorable chapters to me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a favorite, but the whole way that this is described and shakes out is so like, you can feel
100%
humidity. It's just like gross.
Yeah. It's just a really, really good, well-written chapter. There are moments where I felt like Reek, where I was scared that we weren't going to pull it. I'm saying we because I felt like,
we're in this together, buddy.
Yeah, a little bit. And there were moments where I was afraid that he wasn't going to be able to pull it off. And then the tension between the internal tension between Reek and the other boy, the other man whose name he won't even think anymore, it was so palpable. That I was afraid that he would forget he was Reek for a moment.
Yeah.
And a bit of Theon would break out. And then there's a moment where he remembers when he sees Roose Bolton. I got like chills.
I love that bit where he's like, I used to fucking
make
fun of this dude to his face. What was I thinking?
Right.
I love that.
It's really, really good. It's really good. But yeah, so let's, I guess, start at the beginning of the Reek chapter.
All right. So, Reek has been bathed and put into fresh clothes and sent out with a horse, granted a broken down, shitty horse, but nevertheless. And, it's a real testament to like the way that George has set up Ramsay as a true terror, that even as a reader, I am not thinking you should try to escape.
Oh, absolutely the fuck not.
Not for a moment does it cross my mind that is something he should try. Nope. Unlike in other things where, somebody who's abusive, there's a chance. Like I first on my mind, of course, because it's coming out again, is The Color Purple, where I just want her to slit his throat. Just go ahead and do it. What's the worst that could happen? But this, it feels like I believe he would know. I believe he'd find you. I believe he has people watching you.
I believe you don't stand a chance in hell of getting away, so don't even fucking try it. Like, I'm at home shook on Reek's behalf. Like, you just don't want to fuck around with Ramsay. You just don't. Yeah. I never for a second thought, oh, this is your chance, make a break for it.
Yeah. And he's also thinking like, where the hell would I even go anyway? Which is a good point, like he is so frail. It's not like he is in any situation to hunt for himself or defend himself if he comes up against anybody. Like, he has been even robbed of his teeth, like most of them. So, he is just like, I'll deliver him the castle. I will. I must. And I just have to once again complain about the narration of the audiobook.
Oh, right.
Because Roy Dotrice, if you listen to Gilly and then you listen to Reek, they have the same voice.
Oh, what?
A really, really similar cadence and tone and pitch, everything.
Really?
And it is so irritating. This, like, I will deliver him the castle. I will. I must. Is a desperate sound. That's got the tone to it of somebody who is just like, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. I know I will. And badly, too. Bad death. The way Roy Dotrice reads this, I will deliver him the castle. I will. I must.
Oh.
Like this plaintive child, like nothing like it's just, oh my God, you guys, it's so bad. I really need them to just get a new narrator, for the love of God, because it is fucking annoying.
I thought
how
I had read
much
somewhere
ruins
there was
the
another
chapters.
there was another version. Is he the only audiobook version?
There's another version that was, I don't know if they did all of the books. I feel like they only did the first couple, and you can only pirate it.
Oh.
Miles sent me one via like MP3 file on Dropbox, but the quality was really bad. So I wound up just going back to this one anyway. But yeah, you guys, it was bad enough that I stopped and sat down and read it.
No,
I
did you
couldn't
really?
take it? It was so fucking annoying.
That is a damning statement.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, this the whole journey we hear over and over again about how humid the air is, how the ground is barely solid and makes this sucking sound every time his horse pulls his hooves out. And he has been told to pretend that he is the prince still, of the Ironborn, but don't get it twisted. You're not, though. Make sure you remember who the fuck you are.
Mm-hmm.
And he is.
And that's just the refrain throughout the chapter is the various rhyming, Reek, it rhymes with leak, it rhymes with weak, it rhymes with, cheek,
Freak.
Everything over and over. Freak. This description too of what Theon looks like now, that he's all washed up and dressed, but his gloves are stuffed with wool so that it's not immediately apparent that he is missing fingers.
Yep.
His hair has turned completely white and he's lost most of it. Like you mentioned already, missing and broken teeth. Skinny, sickly looking. Like it's and the fact that they're gonna just wash him up and throw him in some halfway decent clothes and he's just gonna be Prince Theon again.
Yeah.
And walk in and tell these people what they're gonna do next is wild to me. And then it turns out that it doesn't even really matter if they believe that he's who he says he is, because the Ironborn that are left behind are in such fucking bad shape.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, really bad scene that he comes upon. So also he's been told that, like, if you do this for me, you'll be like one of my dogs and allowed to eat meat every day.
This is going to be like a step up.
Yep.
You from the dungeons to being one of the dogs. They even get a fucking collar for him.
Yep.
And yeah, I expected him to be on a leash at one point.
I would not be surprised if that's like, I don't remember, but don't dismiss that out of hand. And he's also thinking about how much he still has to lose, that if he gets caught again, he's still got 7 good fingers that they could fucking take. And he's like, I've got 7. I got to protect these. 7's a sacred number,
Yeah. I can still get by with 7 fingers, but like less than that, then it's really going to get a little hairy. Which is just what?
Yeah.
But also he's like low key not wrong. Like, if you're gonna lose fingers, you want to like keep that number to a minimum.
Indeed. Yes.
So like, I appreciate him acknowledging, the sort of severity of his situation, and is obscene as it is to be like 7's still a good number. Yeah, it's not as good as 10, but it's better than 6.
Yep. So he gets to the towers and he starts thinking about how the Karstarks took the Drunkard's Tower and the Umbers the Children's Tower. Robb claimed the Gatehouse Tower for his own. If he closed his eyes, he could see the banners in his mind's eye snapping bravely in the brisk north wind. All gone now, all fallen. The wind on his cheeks was blowing from the south, and the only banners flying above the remains of Moat Cailin displayed a golden kraken on a field of black. So he knows that he's being watched And we get some pretty wild descriptions of the wildlife that he is running into. Not only animals, but also some pretty sick sounding flowers that are called blood blossoms.
Yeah, this was crazy pants.
Yeah. Can I read this part?
Yeah.
To assault any of the three towers, an attacker must expose his back to arrows from the other two, whilst climbing damp stone walls festooned with streamers of slimy white ghost skin. The swampy ground beyond the causeway was impassable, an endless morass of suckholes, quicksands, and glistening green swards that looked solid to the unwary eye, but turned to water the instant you trod upon them, the whole of it infested with venomous serpents and poisonous flowers and monstrous lizard lions with teeth like daggers. Just as dangerous were its people, seldom seen, but always lurking, the swamp dwellers, the frog eaters, the mud men. Peat and Boggs, Cray and Quag, Greengood and Blackmire, those were the sorts of names they gave themselves. The Ironborns called them bog devils. And at one point he sees this like corpse, and he says blood blooms had sprouted from their gaping wounds, pale flowers with petals plump and moist as a woman's lips. I do not care for that at all. Not a bit.
I had like a really quick moment of just being like, witch lips?
Not mine, surely. He would never.
This this is where our friends Jojen and Mira are from.
Yes.
Right? This is what are they called? The Cranag men?
The Cranag men, yes.
Yeah. They are really what's the word I'm looking for? Every other culture, area, region, whatever of people, they all have such a almost supernatural sort of dis-ease around these people and this area.
So
everybody
there's a real feel of them being like the hillbillies.
There's something that's like ominous about like everybody else, because I don't really haven't seen anything from these people to make me feel one way or the other about them, honestly. So what I'm always getting is other people's perceptions of them and where they're from, and everybody is just like, oh, you don't want to go there.
Yeah,
you don't want to go there.
Yeah, you don't know where you're about to start if you set foot in that area, because they are not going to play.
Right. And yeah, like, I guess like the idea of sort of how insular they are, which we've met other communities of people who behave this way. The mountain people, that, was it, who was talking to Stannis about them? Was that Jon? And then you have the actual clans of the mountains that Tyrion dealt with in the earlier books up in like the Vale area. So we in the wildlings to an extent. So you have these pockets of people that exist in this world that are in this world, but not of it. You know, and there's just this sort of almost superstitious feeling about interacting with these types of communities of people. Just, you know, like, oh, they're just weird over there. I don't, you wouldn't catch me traveling through there after dark, you know, that kind of feeling.
Yep. And when I mention hillbillies, the reason I'm thinking about that is like the way that they talk about, oh, well, they eat frogs and stuff like that. And it makes me think of like people talking about, oh, they eat possums, you know, that sort of like, not only is it distasteful that they eat what they eat, but it's also considered like a freaky animal that's native to their area only, in a way that's like not really true. There are frogs everywhere. There are possums all over the fucking place. But like, we're just going to act like they're not an option for food. For why? For what reason? They're edible. Go ahead and eat them. Who cares? But we don't do that. So it's this whole weird taboo for why.
Yeah.
People are hungry. They're going
And
to eat what they're going to eat.
excuse me, there's a classism in that
Very
as well,
much so.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're so low class and poor, you'll just eat anything, because we make these sort of arbitrary lines about what is acceptable to eat and what is not, which animals are okay to eat and which animals are an indication that you're like low class.
It is so funny, the things that we come up with to like demarcate class. There was something that was shared in that People Against Modern Farmhouse Facebook group, one of my favorite groups at this point. And it was a screenshot of the post made in a group this woman is in, which is for the community in her apartment building. And it's apparently one of those like apartments that has a sort of gated entrance and one of those big stone walls that has a sign on it that's like, the homes at River's Edge.
Yes.
Those fucking places. Yes. And this dude had left a post that was like, I was wondering who to speak to about the decorations for the lobby of our building, because I was surprised to see colored lights, which I just don't think really reflect the caliber of the building the way that we want it to.
Oh my God.
And he used that wording a couple times. And it was just so fascinating to me that like, even when called on it, as he apparently was, and he goes into the comments and he's just like, I'm just saying, I don't think this really reflects us the way that we want to be seen. I could be wrong.
God.
Don't think I am.
Oh my God.
And I really wanted somebody to just press him on, why do you think that multicolored lights are trashy? Like that's what he's saying. I want to know why he thinks that. I want him to quantify.
He can't.
Exactly.
He would be able to.
And that's what I mean. Like you can't. It's just something that like, I know my grandmother thought she would never have used colored Christmas lights.
Really?
Never in her life. She would rather die.
Really?
Oh yeah. It just was like, you just don't do that.
So you just put like white lights on your tree?
Mm-hmm.
Wowzers.
It's like understood. I know what he means. I was from a family that felt this way. I have grown to like colored lights, but I still choose white lights for my tree. Like you saw the picture, my banner picture, like that's my whole, living room is white lights. And I think a lot of that is from the trying to mimic as close as possible what they do in like Norway and England, that candlelight look, but it's still, why though? But why? And there's just a weird, we have these hangups and these things that we have decided, and it's actually, it's based in something. It's not totally arbitrary. It feels it until you begin to pick at it, and then you start to be like, oh, okay. And I find it sort of fascinating because we accept a lot of it at face value and don't ask questions a whole lot of the time. The lights thing feels a little bit more absurd. I think a lot of us would be like, really, dude? What do you mean? But not me. I understood what he meant and where that was coming from. And I knew that I have family that would have also felt this way. So it's just, I don't know, class and what's acceptable.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
We have a really weird, in America at least, a very weird relationship with class, and our idea, like we made class distinctions in America to be only around money.
Yes.
At this point, like if you ask somebody about what class they're in, they only think of it as economic, and they think I'm poor, I'm lower class, I'm working class, I'm middle class, I'm upper class, blah 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 blah, and it's all directly tied to how much money they make. And then you have other societies where it is money, but it's also family.
Yes.
Like who your family was, like, and what station
Bloodline.
you're born into, bloodline, right?
Yeah.
And like with America's class, we brag about how there's mobility because you can have, supposedly, they claim, you can rise in class if you just make enough money.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And then there's the idea of class, in relation to capital, which is a whole other, conversation about what class you actually belong in. And so it feels like in America, we, like when you talk about the things like white lights and how they sort of are mimicking a classic sort of candlelit, aesthetic. We are just mimicking what we think the upper class valued.
Very, very much. Yes.
And it's such a strange thing. And like you said, a lot of people don't even realize where it's coming from, but they recognize it when you start talking about this guy and his comments about the lights. Like, I get immediately like who this guy is and what he's talking about, because I was shocked to hear your grandmother was like this, because I don't really know. It doesn't come up in conversation, so I really don't know people who have direct experience with this sort of thinking. But that doesn't mean that I think it's rare.
My grandmother was that really special, low class, like broke ass, but believed that somewhere in her storied past, she was like basically just like shabby genteel. That if you went back far enough, you would find out that she was like connected to somebody, and she was very much like subscribed to the sort of rules that they do in Britain. It's about blood. It's not about how much money you have. It's about breeding and manners and that sort of thing. And fancied herself to be superior to anyone else, despite if they made the same or more money than she did. That did not matter to her. It was a whole other metric that she used.
Right. And then that sort of metric is so immovable, that it kind of can give some people comfort, because if you value that, it like you said, it doesn't matter what I'm doing today. Don't you know who my family is?
Yeah.
Or who my family was. And that's always going to give me a sense of superiority. When I don't have anything else that makes me better than anybody, I don't have anything to my name that makes me better than anybody else, but I can say, don't you know who my family is?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's part of the thing that's so interesting about the Gilded Age, is that sort of clash between, in the show, it's all about like old money versus new money, but really it's just about like, can you buy your way into being, truly upper class? And some people think that you can, and some people think that you can't.
Yeah, it's a really fun question, because I don't have any stake in it. I don't imagine ever going to be facing that issue and particularly care. But I also have just enough of that like sort of haughtiness inherited from my grandmother that I can see the arguments that some of them are like, I can get where they're coming from, even though I don't think it matters, and it's inherently silly. It's just so invented, but I also do know what it's like to be around people who think this way. And man, they are just, they are so certain that they are superior. It's compelling almost.
There's like an interesting history in America with Black people, especially the descendants of enslaved people, where there was a real push to have a sort of like high society, right? And to elevate yourself from your roots, maybe as being formerly enslaved, to suddenly being like, a person of means, whether that's because you were a doctor or a lawyer or, a shopkeeper or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they created all of these sort of social societies that mimic, the white ones, and they would have there's debutante balls, and there's like the certain schools you go to, and this idea that like you carry yourself a certain way based on your class, so that certain behaviors are seen as low class. And we know, like, we talk about like is the way that these sort of like vestiges are still around. We'll see somebody and be like, oh, that she shouldn't be wearing a dress that color, or all those colors are tacky. You want to wear neutral colors. Neutral is, respectable.
Yes.
All your beiges and your creams and your
whites and grays. Yeah. If you want to see gray get made fun of a lot, go to Modern Farmhouse, guys. The people against Modern Farmhouse hate gray.
Is that the millennial gray I keep hearing about?
I guess it maybe is. It's funny because I'm in a group where they rail against it so much that thinking about it as being like a millennial thing, I think of it as being like, the province of older people. But if I stop and really consider the types of influencers that I see peddling their white and gray homes with the gather signs, I guess that does tend to be millennials, or even slightly younger. But listen, everybody, can we all just agree that signs with words on them, not it. That's all I want. Keep your grays and your whites, fine. I don't like it, but it's not offensive. But the signs.
I have to take a picture of the sign in my mother-in-law's kitchen. She's got one.
What's it say?
It says,
in this kitchen we dance.
No, it's like, I think it's just in this kitchen we dance.
That's a really common one.
I think it's just the Italian word for kitchen.
Okay.
I think is what she has hanging up on the wall. It's like cucina, I think. Yeah, and it's like the only one that she has too. I don't think she has any like live, laugh, loves or.
All right, that's excusable.
Any kind of stuff.
Listen, we're all able to have like one, maybe two with words, and I don't think that that's such a sin. But once you've got 3 or 4 on the same wall, now you've got a problem. You've got an infestation. You've got to get somebody in there to take care of that because they will continue to multiply.
Where is pest control?
Yeah. And if you think I'm kidding, you kids do not understand the way that gift giving works, because once people see one thing that you're into, that's what you're into for the rest of your life. And you will get that as a gift forever. And you may be over the sign thing, but try and tell your mother-in-law that, because that's just who you are now.
I finally stopped getting Harry Potter stuff for Christmas. This is the first year that I didn't get a single Harry Potter related thing. I always get like something from somebody.
Yay.
And it's finally like sitting in. It's really the end of an era for real now.
Yeah, this is there was Harry Potter stuff from various friends of mine. And there started an alarming trend where I was getting a couple like Doctor Who themed things. And I just wanted to be like, no, you misunderstand. That is work. That is my work thing. But anyway, so he gets here. He is like, there's a fucking arrow that lands a foot from his face. It goes like through the banner that he's carrying. And somebody is yelling at him like, get the fuck in here. Hurry, 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 hurry. He scrambles up the steps on hands and knees and gets dragged in. And they're like, what the fuck do you want? And I love this. I'm Ironborn, Reek answered, lying. The boy he'd been before had been Ironborn, true enough. But Reek had come into this world in the dungeons of the Dreadfort. And he can't even say that he is Theon. He only can get out, I am Lord Balon's son, your prince. Which there is something really powerful about being afraid to say your own name. Like,
Yeah, it's
yikes.
and this is when he thinks my name is Reek. It rhymes with squeak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he keeps coming up with these little. Would you call it this is a mnemonic device? Are mnemonic devices
No.
about like using words to remember other words?
I don't know if it's to remember words.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think it's to remember, like, is it to remember like a concept?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because I always, recall it being something like, yes, well, to remember, the first chemicals on the periodic table, think old Johnson wears long johns to bed, and it's OJ W, like that kind of thing. Please don't come at me about the periodic table, guys. I don't know. It's
like the colors in the rainbow, right? Is Roy G. Biv?
Roy G. Biv, but like that's not a sentence. That still may be a mnemonic device. What I'm asking about are the ones that they turn into sentences. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I'm trying to find a fucking definition for it, but it took me a minute to remember how to fucking spell it.
I always. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's a learning technique that aids information retention.
That's it.
So it makes use of elaborate encoding, retrieval cues, and imagery as specific tools to encode information. Let's see. Common ones in auditory form, such as short poems and acronyms. So yeah, Roy G. Biv would be one.
Okay.
They can be used for other types of information in visual form as well. Types.
So it sounds like Old Man Johnson wears long johns to bed would also count. So they both are. Okay.
They literally use Roy G. Biv as an example, or the way you remember the Great Lakes, like homes, stuff like that. Oh, then there's ones called acrostics. Oh, Steve gets so angry when people confuse acronyms and acrostics.
What are acrostics?
Acrostics is when the first letters of each thing form its own word.
Oh, right.
Like radar is not an acronym, but it I think is an acrostic. Is that right? No, radar is not a good example of an acrostic.
Oh God, you guys.
This has gotten wildly off topic.
Forget it. So he finally convinces him of his identity. And there's a dead body there. And he asks, who's this? And like kicks the body. And the guy is like, oh, him. Yeah, he ate the water. I had to kill him. He just would not stop screaming. That's why we have ale, is because you can't drink that water. Which, yikes. And it's almost like when Reek asks, who's this? That the guy had forgotten the body was there?
Oh, yeah. Like having just dead bodies around is like stop being something to notice. They're well past being like, oh my God, there's a body there. Like he literally is like, we used to just get rid of them, put them in the basement, but now we just fucking leave them where they fall.
Man, grim. And when he says, well, why don't you go ahead and like put them in the basement and give them to the drowned god? The guy's like, no, we don't go down there. There's rats and there's water snakes as thick as your leg, and they will climb the stairs sometimes and bite you in your sleep.
No, thank you.
I am so sorry. What? That is unacceptable.
Yeah. Why are we still here?
Oh my God.
We should have set off for home ages ago. Makes no sense that we're all still sitting here. And we find out the reason they're still sitting here is because Victorian left to go to the King's Moot and was like, yeah, I'll be back. And just hasn't come back yet. And these guys have been left behind to basically try to hold this castle, but with no support and no, supplies coming in, and they've low-key been just left to die.
Yeah. Yeah, so it becomes clear later, too. They really do think they've been abandoned. And it's not until Reek really kind of zeroes in on that they start to listen to him. He demands to speak to Kenning, who is the commander, who is left
the man in charge. They take him to somebody who is like in the middle of actively dying.
Yes, this is really, really gross.
Right. And how is he still in charge? Like, everybody just like, nah, it's fine. He's still hanging on. Nobody is in a rush to be the next person in charge. Normally, when a leader is failing, there's somebody in the wings that can't wait to be like, I'm in charge now. That is not what's happening here.
Beneath the furs, he was naked and feverish, his pale, puffy flesh covered with weeping sores and scabs. His head was misshapen, one cheek grotesquely swollen, his neck so engorged with blood that it threatened to swallow his face. The arm on that same side was as big as a log and crawling with white worms. No one had bathed him or shaved him for many, many days from the look of him. One eye wept pus, and his beard was crusty with dried vomit. And it turns out he got hit with one of the bog arrows, which they rub with shit and poisons. And Reek's like, kill him. Are you kidding me? And he's like, what? I can't. And he's like, yeah, you really can. And he
fucking
does it himself.
Reek says, well, you would put down a dying horse. And the man says, what horse? I never had a horse.
Sir, it's a metaphor. Jesus Christ. I swear to God. So yeah, Reek finally does it with the sword that's just sitting there. When he laid the edge of the blade against the swollen throat of the creature on the straw, the skin split open in a gout of black blood and yellow pus. Kenning jerked violently, then lay still. An awful stench filled the room. And they run out there, and it's like, just a close thing on whether this other dude is going to throw up right then and there.
When he talks about putting the horse down, Reek has a moment of remembering that the other guy had, like, I once had a horse. Then it's like, wait, no, it wasn't mine. It was the other guy. Reek never had a horse. Again, just this tension back and forth that he's going through with about who he actually is, and having to just keep reminding himself that he is Reek now. This other guy, the things that he did, the things that he had, the people he knew, that none of that is his anymore. None of that was him. And it's such a strange experience reading someone trying to convince themselves that they are someone other than who they are.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's very trippy to read.
And he says finally, like, all right, so take me to whoever the others are that we can talk to. And there's 24 Ironborn drinking and just basically like camped out inside where they can be safe from the creepy animals and the stealthy bog people. It's just not safe to set foot out of doors, basically. And these dudes, he comes in and tells them who he is. He shows them the parchment. It becomes pretty clear they can't read.
Yeah. He also has an assessment of these men that have been left behind, excuse me, based on something they're wearing. It's a brooch. And Theon looks around and he's like, oh, these cods, they're not very good. It's no wonder they got left behind.
Yeah, it's they all apparently are like basically second stringers, third stringers even. And considered like they have no guts. These are not dudes who are going to lead the charge, and they're cowards and they're thieves as well.
Yeah.
The women who are wantons who bedded with their own fathers and brothers.
Yeah.
Oops, that sucks. So again, explains who he is and tells them that you're being offered a deal if you give up Moat Cailin. And they're like, we need men. We need bows. We need food. We are Ironborn, and we don't surrender.
Right. What was fascinating to me about all this is that even though he comes as Theon Prince, right, he's also very clear about the capacity that he's here in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a captive.
Yes.
You know, I'm here on behalf of Lord Ramsay. So he's there with, it's not like he's there with authority as Theon, but it's not like a free Theon who's there speaking on behalf of, you know, their king and everything. He's there as a prisoner.
Yes. And
I guess that's just a testament to how bad off everybody is doing. That they're just like, yeah, we're gonna follow this guy who obviously is not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just take one look at him. But our situation is so fucked up that what he's promising us seems like it would be ridiculous not to accept it, ultimately.
Yes. Yeah, and not all of them see it that way.
Oh, it takes a minute.
Yeah. He keeps trying to explain to them. First, you know, just trying to be like, you guys are dead meat. Are you kidding? Do you see what the state of this place? Like, what do you think is going to happen if you don't give over?
Mm-hmm.
And Victarion commanded us to hold. I heard with my own ears, hold here till I return. And he says, my uncle is never coming back. The King's Moot crowned his brother Euron, and the Crow's Eye has other wars to fight. You think my uncle values you? He doesn't. You're the ones he left behind to die. He scraped you off the same way he scrapes mud off his boots when he wades ashore. And that's what hits. Now, correct me, though. The King's Moot crowned his brother Euron. And the Crow's Eye has other... So Victarion is the one that he said to... Yeah. Okay. So Victarion probably isn't coming back. I was trying to determine whether or not what he said was really true.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Victarion's pretty brutal and would see these guys as very much like disposable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nobody is coming back to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And they know it. Which is why when Theon calls it out, everybody is just like, oh, right in the chest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He still wants them to read this fucking parchment.
And they just keep being like, no, it's all right. I'm sure it says things. Eventually, this guy named Dagon gets up and starts getting in his face. And Reek can see that he's drunk.
Yeah.
And sort of lets him go off. And it turns out that nobody is really feeling the same. Like, this dude is doing a lot of, we're Ironborn and we would never, and he has not taken the tone of the room.
Not at all.
He has failed to read the room.
Yeah. He's out here making threats. You can't scare us. We're Ironborn. I'll cut your head off and drag out your entrails and you can run back to your master and blah, 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 blah. And right in the middle of this very stirring speech of his, somebody just clocks him with an axe right in the middle of his fucking face.
Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the story.
Yep. And the guy who did it is just like, anybody else got anything to say?
Yep. If anybody else feels like they're really itching to die, which is what would probably happen if we stayed here anyway, go ahead and try me. And Reek is like, sweet, I won. Oh, yeah. Daddy's going to be so happy.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because later on in Jon's chapter, there's a moment where this happens. People have to make a decision. And Jon is reminded of what Mance Rayder said about the Wildlings, about how they follow the man. They don't follow the family, the sigil, or any of that. They follow the man. And it's kind of what happens here. Like, once this guy stands up and is like, I'm not trying to fucking die here.
Yeah.
Other people are like, you know what? He might be right.
I am also not trying to fucking die here. He makes really compelling points.
Right.
So they have to get ready to take off, and there's more of them than Reek was expecting, but fewer than Ramsay's men were expecting, because they've been held off and assumed that there was like quite a garrison there. And there's a moment where Reek is feeling like distinct pride in the Ironborn for being able to hold these guys off and make it seem like there were so many more of them than there actually were.
Yeah, that's that moment where he starts to feel a little bit of pride. And then has to, remember that he's not allowed to.
You feel the danger of all of these moments. I feel like with a lesser writer, these bits of paranoia that he can tell what I'm thinking would fall really flat. But my God, I believe them. I really believe them. And it's also partially because of how Ramsay is written, that he does seem like the kind of person who can see what's going through somebody's head, because he's such a bully. That's how he controls everybody, is being able to predict their actions, their desires,
Yeah. That's I don't want to diagnose a fictional character, but that's like part of the difference between like a regular, bad guy and somebody who is like a sociopath. Because they know how to read their victims, and it can become almost like a supernatural thing. It'll start to feel like they always know what I'm thinking. How does he always know what I'm about to do next? You know, and that kind of thing, because they have such a good understanding of how a person works and how to anticipate what they might think or what they might do and how to exploit that. That bit when we are Ironborn, he thinks with a sudden flash of pride, and then it's just like, nope, my name is Reek. It rhymes with weak. And his little memory thing, his little song he sings to himself, the words are like, sometimes doesn't mean anything, like when it just rhymes with leak. But sometimes it rhymes with like exactly how he's feeling. In the moment too. I like that little thing that George is doing with that.
So I wonder if he had like a little rhyming dictionary open. Just like, let me just like get prepared for that scene where he's feeling weak.
My God, there was a time when I was younger where like every dude had a rhyming dictionary because they were all going to be rappers.
Oh my God.
And like, actually carried rhyming dictionaries around.
I had one.
Did you?
Oh yeah, because I was like very into writing and whatnot as a little one.
Oh,
Scholastic Book Fair got me.
I never had a
dictionary.
I never had one. I always kept a thesaurus around, but never a rhyming dictionary. You can't tell by the way I podcast, but
man, that is so true though. Like the number of times that I'm editing and I'm like, I just used the word fundamentally 11 times in a row. Like I really do.
What is this madness? But like, if you give me a vocabulary test, I'm gonna fuck that shit up. I might use the same 12 words over and over again, but
yep. I know other words, just, like I don't want to think about them. So he brings them back. The Ironborn are very compliant, and one of them even wants to like kiss Ramsay's ring. And then Ramsay turns to Reek, and he is actually going to follow through on the reward that was promised. And he does the test of, I'll give you anything you want. What would you like? Do you want to leave my service and go home? And of course, Reek knows, he wants one answer.
This is a fucking trap.
My place is
Because
here with you. I'm your Reek. I only want to serve. All I ask is a skin of wine. That would be reward enough for me. All the wine a man can drink. Lord Ramsay laughed. You're not a man, Reek. You're just my creature. You'll have your wine, though. Walder, see to it. And fear not, I won't return you to the dungeons. You have my word as a Bolton. Which is funny, because he's not. LOL.
right.
We'll make a dog of you instead. Meat every day. I'll even leave you teeth enough to eat it. You can sleep beside my girls. Ben, do you have a collar for him? I'll have one made, my lord. And he gets not only a collar, but a blanket, half a chicken, and his wine.
He has to fight the dogs for that chicken.
Yeah, he does.
He wins. And it's the best meal he's had since he left Winterfell, which is Jesus Christ. Yeah, because that was a long time ago.
Yep.
And he gets fucked up. He drinks all of this wine, throws up, and then drinks some more.
Oh, man. It's probably such a relief to get out of his head for a minute. God.
Yep.
And at one point he wakes up and he can hear men screaming. And he just closes his eyes and goes back to sleep.
Yep. And he knows he's 63. There are going to be 63 of them.
Mm-hmm. The flayed men along the rotting plank road, wooden stakes were driven deep into the boggy ground. There the corpses festered, red and dripping. So, these dudes, I mean...
Ramsay did not keep his promise.
He sure didn't.
They were all killed immediately and just made Reek a whole liar.
Mm-hmm. Reek seems totally unconcerned. He seems to be like, that of course. I did not think he was going to not kill them. Like, come on.
Yep. Like, low-key better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is horrible, but also the reality of his situation.
And just like, I'm just wondering whether or not Roose wanted him to handle it this way. Because Ramsay doesn't give the impression of somebody who takes orders very well. But I also don't know how much Roose is involved and how much he has let Ramsay take the lead on how to handle certain things. Like, just giving him assignment, like, get me Moat Cailin, and then left it alone. Because one might think, in the same tradition as Cersei Lannister, that if you just keep breaking your promises to people, then nobody is going to take anything you say seriously ever again. But this is also the Ironborn, who basically have no friends in the kingdom anymore. Yeah,
I think that's exactly the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
Because we know that as Roose enters Moat Cailin, they have to go by all these bodies.
Yeah.
And we don't get so much as a hint of what his reaction is. You know, he just rides through. It says, I think it says something about how, like, you just can't read Roose's face. Like, he looks the same whether he's angry or happy.
Yeah.
There's just you cannot tell what's going on behind that man's eyes. Oh my God, and the description of the eyes. Fucking yikes.
Yeah.
Eyes so cold, he wonders if when he cries, does it feel like ice going down his cheeks? Like, fuck's sake.
And there's a lot. This is a really funny one. His face was clean shaved, smooth skinned, ordinary. Not handsome, but not quite plain. Though Roose had been in battles, he bore no scars. Though well past 40, he was as yet unwrinkled, with scarce a line to tell of the passage of time. There are a lot of people who think Roose is a vampire.
Doesn't he does that weird thing with the leeching.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Are vampires a thing in this universe?
As far as we know, no, they are not. But I can also understand why, because of the, like, slow reveal of weird magic and creatures, that some folks might be like, well, who knows? Maybe it's just a sort of implied subtle thing that George is doing for fun and not necessarily like, you know, a plot point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's funny.
But yeah, I just think that's really, and you know, people age quickly in this world. And the fact that he doesn't show any scars, any wrinkles, anything is kind of weird. Like, I understand that catching people's attention. So I just want to mention about some notes that Austin gave us about this chapter.
Okay.
That Jon had predicted Moat Cailin would like go down if you came from a certain angle, and he's like, yeah, it went even more quickly than Jon could have predicted, but it's clear if Ramsay hadn't sent Reek, it would have cost him. So doing it this way was actually kind of a stroke of genius on Ramsay's part, which I don't like to see.
You don't like to admit.
I am never interested in somebody who is as sadistic as Ramsay Bolton also having good judgment. I don't like those combos together. No, thank you. And let's see, Theon. Oh, right. This whole thing with meeting Jane Poole, and he knows immediately this isn't actually Arya, even though it's been years now. Her eyes are a different color. And it could be a big problem, but like also most of the people who know what Arya looks like are dead, and fucking Reek isn't going to be saying anything.
Yeah, that was what was so this is an interesting thing for me because this is actually very, very different from what the show did. So in the show, there was no big secret to keep, you know. It was Sansa, and she was Sansa. But this is Reek knowing that this girl who's pretending to be Arya is an imposter. And so for me, it's like, as a reader, my first thought becomes like, how does he keep this secret? Is he able to keep this secret? What does Reek do? Does Reek, like, does he think I should tell them the truth because they've been betrayed and my master wants me to, like, tell the truth? Or does Reek, to your point, like, just go, I'm not saying shit about shit because I'm Reek and I don't get a fucking say. Reek doesn't know anything about anything. Or also, like, Reek never knew this girl. The other boy knew her, but Reek doesn't know her. So I'm also keeping my mouth shut, you know? And it's a very interesting thing to think about. I don't know. I feel like it could maybe go, like you said, of course, Reek won't say anything. But I really was wondering, like, if he thinks that his master is being played a fool, he might think telling them the truth would be, you know, considered a good service.
Interesting. So it depends on whether or not they show their hand that they are in on it.
Yeah, like I wonder if, and to be honest, trying to remember the people who send her to Roose so she can marry Ramsay know that she's not Arya Stark. But I can't remember how in on the plan Roose is, or if we even know that. Like, I don't know if that's something that we know and I forgot, or if we just don't know.
I am not sure if we've been explicitly told, but I believe that he is in on it because Roose has met Arya many times, right? Like, he was one of Ned's bannermen. I'm assuming that he knows what she looks like and that he can tell this isn't her too.
That's true. He would have known her as a little girl. And then that becomes a question of, like, how much attention does he pay? Roose seems like the type of person that pays attention to everything.
Very much so.
Right. A different character, I might be like, I don't know. He hasn't seen her in a very long time. And how much attention would he have paid to a little girl who was probably ushered out of the room more times than not whenever Roose was around, you know? But Roose is such a exacting man. And we know that he doesn't drink, so it's not like he got so fucked up he can't remember what she looks like every time he was at Winterfell. I think Roose would would recognize Arya or who wasn't Arya.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this was like part of the deal for betraying Robb, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that it's not so much like, am I being played? Is this really her? As, does it matter if this isn't really her? I want Winterfell. This gets me Winterfell.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's, I've been sort of assuming that he is in on it, but
Okay.
you're right. I don't think we've gotten like specific confirmation on that.
And then my next question becomes, I wonder how, if Ramsay knows. Not that Ramsay is going to care. Like, I don't think he cares one way or the other. But then my next question is, does Roose like hip Ramsay to what's happening? Does he trust him enough to tell him, you know, because I'm curious about their relationship, Ramsay and Roose's relationship. Again, like earlier you mentioned wondering about whether or not Roose knows Ramsay's just going to kill everybody, and whether or not he thinks that was a smart thing to do. So it makes me wonder if he thinks he can trust his son with like the details of this charade.
Yeah, and there's a moment here also that I thought when Roose introduces Ramsay to Walda, he says, "Lady Walda, this is my natural son." And I had thought it was being put around that he was an official Bolton now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I couldn't remember. Like, I was like, natural son, that's the slang for my bastard.
Mm-hmm. It's
But
like
then
the
I was like,
polite way of saying it.
And I was like, I think I got that wrong, because why would he introduce him like that now? So I thought that I just misremembered what that expression meant.
I really wonder, did he just make up that he was, you know, given what's the word I want? What do they call it when you're given
Legitimized?
Thank you. Yes, that. But
I think it has more to do with just who Roose is as a man. Like, he just doesn't, like, getting Ramsay legitimized so that he can take the Bolton name and all that stuff is all fine and good for politics and for ruling and all that jazz. But that doesn't change the reality of who Ramsay is. And Roose doesn't seem like the type of person that, like, pretends. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't seem like that type. Like, I'm not going to just start pretending you're my real son because we got some piece of paper signed, you know. Like, I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So it ends with her saying, "I pray I will make you a good wife and give you strong sons to follow after you." "That you will," promised Ramsay, "and soon." And then we go to Jon. Jon's going to have a hard day.
Yeah.
And he wakes up. He hasn't eaten. It's cold. And he's thinking about some news that he got from Eastwatch, that they cited the wreckage of some ship that they don't know the name. Like, they can't tell whose it is. Was it Stannis's? Was it the one he sent Gilly and Sam and Maester Aemon off on? Like, he's kind of consumed by whether or not he killed them.
Yeah.
You know? And it says Bowen Marsh had urged him to move into the old bear's former chambers in the King's Tower after Stannis had vacated them, but Jon had declined. Moving into the King's chambers could too easily be taken to mean he did not expect the king to return. I can't decide if that's the right move. I kind of feel like he should take it.
Yeah?
I do. I feel like that would, because so many of his men are feeling a bit of a way about Stannis seeming to like take the Night's Watch as his private army, that establishing this is my space might be seen in a positive light by guys with that kind of concern. And I have a tendency to prioritize who's here over the potential displeasure of a future Stannis. You know what I mean?
I do.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of think, but what do you think?
I kind of it's weird because I remembered that Stannis had taken Lord Commander's his rooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how at the time that felt like who the fuck does this guy think he is?
Yeah.
And having Jon take that space right after Stannis has left, I almost felt like, oh, so is he installing himself as the new king now? Like, almost like Stannis has tainted it.
Yeah.
With his shenanigans. And the optics of that would look like, okay, the old king's gone, now here's a new king, and Jon being like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in the way that looks. I'll just stay over here where I am.
Mm.
But the bit about being concerned about what a future Stannis might feel, I agree with you. That is really not a concern of Jon's. I took it more as like Jon being concerned about what it looks like to the men. And not so much what it will look like, say, if Stannis should come back, which I was surprised he's even thinking about that.
Yeah, same. Like, that's so far off, dude. I just don't think it's something that you need to prioritize in your tactics at the moment. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you guys can hear what sounds like a low trombone note in the background. Pippin's snoring in a manner that I have never heard him snore in my life. Can you hear that?
Mm-mm.
It's this like, it sounds like somebody has just turned on a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, no, I can't hear anything.
Wow. I have never heard him do this. It's hilarious. I wish that we weren't recording so that I could tape it on my phone. So he goes down to the stables, passing by people who are training and everything. And he brings Longclaw and Ghost. And Bowen Marsh comes down and is like, "Are you still intent on this folly?" Finished Jon. "Please tell me you were not about to say folly, my lord." "Yes, I am." There's something about him just being like, dude, can we fucking not, that I couldn't help laugh at. And he's like, "Lord Commander Mormont is dead. And not at wildling hands, but at the hands of his own sworn brothers, men he trusted. Neither you nor I can know what he would or would not have done in my place. Enough talk. Away."
I'm just going to just start saying away to people. When I'm done with them, just away.
Away. This, like, the jab about how it was other Night's Watch men is really pretty good, though. Because they're being like, "Oh, we can't trust these." And I'm like, man, you guys can't trust anybody. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And he goes it says, "It was at times like this that Jon missed Maester Aemon the most. Clydas tended to the ravens well enough, but he had not a tenth of Aemon's knowledge or expertise, and even less of his wisdom. Bowen was a good man in his way, but the wound he had taken at the Bridge of Skulls had hardened his attitudes, and the only song he ever sang now was his familiar refrain about sealing the gates. Othel Yarwick was as stolid and unimaginative as he was taciturn, and the first Rangers seemed to die as quick as they were named." And yeah, it just does feel like we're really starting to run out of trusty right hands.
Yeah.
I don't know that Jon should have sent Sam away.
I mean, he was so sure that this had to be done. And I think he underestimated how much value Sam brought. And Sam had been gone for a long time before he sent them away.
True.
So I think maybe Jon just kind of got used to Sam not being around. But he had Aemon all that time.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he really grasped what that vacuum was going to feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. So they go down the King's Road and they keep passing one tree after another that
This is
has
so good.
faces carved into them, like
Yeah.
the weirwoods do for the old gods. And it's just, evidence upon evidence. These guys who claimed to give up their gods so that they could be welcomed in did no such thing.
Yeah. Yep. Somebody in John's group is just like, Melisandre's not going to like this.
Yeah.
And Jon is like, well, she probably won't see it, and maybe no one should fucking tell her about it.
But they've run into so many that it starts to sort of be like, is it going to be something she can even avoid seeing,
right. There's like the second tree, and Ed is like, twice as much trouble.
God. I love Ed, but he really does need to shut the fuck up sometimes.
God, he just is.
He can't help,
he really can't help himself.
She's not like to see that no one tells her. She sees things in those fires, though. Smoke and cinders. And people burning. Me, most like, with leaves up my nose. I always feared I'd burn, but I was hoping to die first. Sir. I don't feel like that's an unreasonable request, but we are not living in reasonable times. I'm sorry to say.
We are not.
So, yeah, they come on a second one, and there's a raven on it. When it spied Jon, it spread its wings and gave a scream. When he raised his fist and whistled, the big black bird came flapping down, crying, "Corn! Corn! Corn!" This little guy keeps repeating words that are not helpful later on as well. So then they come across a third one that does not have as much of a friendly face as the others did.
Yeah, this one is angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jon is like, that is not a friendly face.
So where they're going is Molestown, and there had been a town on the surface and then tunnels underground, but the surface town has been pretty much completely burnt down.
Oh yeah, the wildlings on their way to Castle Black ran through Molestown and just burned it to the fucking ground.
Yep.
But didn't really bother doing anything with the tunnels and shit that were underground. And so now that's where all the wildlings sort of hide, and that's where they go for shelter. And there's a whole bit about when they first start coming up out of the tunnels to greet Jon and his party.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit about just the smell, the stench of them all.
Yeah.
And some of the Night's Watch are starting to, make some jokes about how they all stink, and isn't that just like them? Somebody else makes a joke. Jon thinks about the smell of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And Jon has a moment of just being like, this is so fucking ignorant of my men. I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
And they're still treating the wildlings as if they are some different species, not quite human.
Mm-hmm.
Jon is just thinking they're no different from any other men. Some people are clean and some are dirty. Sometimes you're clean and then sometimes you stink. It's not, a judgment on the character of these people. And he just seems really over some of his own men.
Yeah, he's really losing his patience. And the reason that he's here is to try and convince some of these folks to fight for him.
Yeah.
And it really is funny how many chapters in our coverage there has been a parallel to the chapter before it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We just had Tyrion, who seemingly is going to drown or be stricken with a deadly disease. And then we have Davos, who looks like he's going to be beheaded. And then we have Reek trying to broker this sort of agreement. And Jon as well. He is trying to convince these people that if you want more food, we'll feed you. But you've got to do something for us. We're not just going to give you food for sitting on your ass underground. It's not happening.
Right. And he's offering all kinds of work,
Mm-hmm.
It's not all about just being fighters. He's I can find there's, stables that need to be cleaned and food that needs to be cooked and shit that needs to be repaired. As well as needing people who can actually fight. And he's going to take women as well. He is opening this up to the spear wives if they want to join up.
I really like these people, the wildlings, were trying to break through the wall so that they could get at, and I think that the crux of the matter is here. They're short-term thinkers. So I think they were like, oh, we'll break through the wall, we'll kill all the crows, and then we'll have access to their cache of food, and we'll be able to like hunt and whatnot, because I don't think they had quite realized how much winter had set in here.
Right.
And so they're acting as if Jon is just unwilling to feed them out of principle. When I'm like, guys, if you had been left to your own devices, you guys would already be starving, I bet. Like the amount of food that they have looks vast until you've got enough people and a short enough period of time goes by and you eat as heartily as you all want. And it seems like that was going to be eaten up pretty quickly. Yeah. So as much as I know that you can't really reason with people using logic, I did want Jon to be like, what exactly did y'all expect to happen when you busted through the wall? Like, y'all are running from the whites and you are away from them. So congrats, you got that part. You know?
What was the rest of Mance's plan?
Yeah.
Like, just to get people to the wall on the other side for safety from the whites. But, like, what was coming up next? And I don't know if we ever really got an answer to that. And then they killed him.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, if he was aware. Well, no, he probably wasn't. Because I was going to say they could maybe take over Winterfell with the number of people they have and make that sort of their base. But I don't know if he was aware it was empty.
Yeah, I can't remember if there was a conversation about that when Jon was undercover, about what had happened at Winterfell. I feel like maybe they did talk about it, but I can't be sure.
I wonder how empty it actually is. Like, you know, it's big enough that when you're looking for shelter and the whole top part of Molestown is gone, gotta be people wandering around looking for a roof, you know?
That's an excellent question. Like the people that were in Molestown, what happened to everybody? Where did they go? I mean, because it sounds like now there's nobody but wildlings living there.
Yeah.
So did they just slaughter everybody as they rolled through town? Probably. And the people who managed to get away are just, wandering through the woods looking for a new place to set up shop. There's a lot of people in Molestown. It was a whole little functioning little village that serviced the Night's Watch. That sounds really gross, but you guys know what I mean. It was like they had taverns and they had brothels and, a whole little industry around these men sneaking out of the wall to like go and have some fun.
Compelling. So they're giving away food, but very little. And everybody has to come get their own. So there's a lady. What?
Sorry, I just thought about all those people that were died that may have died at Molestown, and then did they just go off into the woods? Are there like others now? Is that what happened to the whole town?
Oh, I guess because I was, my instinct is always to be like, well, they're below the wall, but they brought some guy below the wall and he turned alive, but he was killed above the wall, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know if that matters.
I don't know. But yeah, okay, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to interrupt. That just that intake, that gasp was just my brain going like, what, the whole town are zombies now?
So this woman's son is sick, and this dude is like, he can have an apple or an onion, but he has to come get him himself. You can't just take the extra and go back to him. And
yeah, this turns into a bit of a ruckus.
Yeah.
She's holding up the line. Other people want to get their onions and their apple and what have you. And she is holding up the line by insisting that she should get a second one. And people start getting a little rowdy.
Yep.
Somebody shoves her and she falls and she spills her little bit of food that she got, which is just awful. She's got a little bit of fucking flour and she spills that. She's like out here wasting food.
Right? Yes, exactly. If let's see, the other foodstuffs went flying, beans scattered, a turnip rolled into a mud puddle, a sack of flour split and spilled its precious contents in the snow. It's not enough, an old man snarled. You bloody crows are starving us to death. Finally, they blow a horn, get everybody to calm the fuck down. And he's like, we're doing what we can, but we have a limited supply. And this dude's like, well, you guys eat well enough. And John's like, we'll see how long that lasts, but sure. And, you know, we're also out here facing the danger, guys. So you guys know what that means. You've seen them yourselves. And even the giants weren't able to like hold their own against them. We have to take this seriously. And the people who are fighting are the ones getting fed. Yeah. You hate us, but we're what's between you and that.
I love that. It's us that keeps you safe. The black crows you despise. And somebody comes back, keeping us safe and starved. Ma'am.
Go find food then. Go find food if it's so easy. Go find it. Figure it out. Like you're acting like they're just doing this for why? The fact that they're giving you anything after y'all tried to kill all of them, we'll set that aside.
And also, Jon really had to like go toe to toe with Stannis to even let these people stay.
Yep.
Like y'all was about to be marched.
Yep.
Further south. Like I don't know what you thought Stannis was going to do and how he was going to treat you, but it was going to probably be worse than this. Y'all are allowed to just go, and even though these conditions aren't, you know, ideal, you're being left to just chill in Molestown, and then we just come and deliver food at whatever frequency this is set up at. We're not, we have asked very little from you up until this point.
Yeah.
If you want more than what we're giving you for nothing, then you got to do something. You're not going to get more for nothing. You want more food? The food's for fighters. That's what he says. Come and help us, and then you'll eat as well as we eat. Then he thinks to himself, or as bad as we eat, we run out of fucking food.
You kill us, you starve us, now you want to make us slaves. And I really started to lose my patience here, guys. Slaves, you want to eat. They have food that they put up through their, like, y'all just showed up.
It's the ant and the grasshoppers.
I do not have the patience. Go hunt, do things, figure it out then, Is there no food out there? Oh, wow. Amazing. There's no food out there. It's almost like there's a limited supply and you should be careful with it. Wild.
And also it's interesting, and I could be just missing a very basic point, and this is going to sound really silly, but they've been told to go to Moletown and shelter there, and there are, I think, some Night's Watch that are kind of patrolling the area, because when Jon sees the trees with the faces carved in, he's like, I don't have enough men out here.
Yeah.
I don't have enough men. But more, and so we know that he doesn't have enough people to keep all of the wildlings in place. They can just go.
They can.
They want. There's not enough Night's Watch to actually keep them imprisoned here at Molestown. Y'all can fucking slip out if you want to. And it looks like you understand, much like Theon, where am I going? Where am I running to? What is out there for me that's better than what I have here? So they are aware that they have very limited options. So to have this kind of energy that they are bringing to this moment, it's really something.
Yeah. It's just like, there's just such and I hate using the word entitlement, but that's what it feels like. You guys came down waging war, ready to kill all these people. And you're mad that they're like keeping you alive, basically, when they could very much have killed all of you. And I just don't have the fucking patience. So at this point, he's like, I'm going to take any boy above the age of 12 who knows how to fight at all, And this girl is like, what about girls? And he says 16 and older. And she's like, you said boys as young as 12. And he's like, thinking about how girls of 12 in comparison to boys of 12 are children, which is hilarious.
Right? And what kind of upside down boy math is this?
And he's like, all right, fine. But only if you are able to obey orders. I'll never ask you to kneel, but I'm in charge. And if you get orders, you better fucking follow them. And if you disobey, I will take your head off. Don't even try to play with me because my men know that I do that shit.
Ask about me.
Mm-hmm.
Ask around about me. And he tells them that also, like, the Night's Watch serve for life. I'm not even going to ask you for that. I'm not going to ask you to swear to serve for life. Like, I'm being super fucking generous with these terms. I don't understand why y'all are bugging.
Yeah. And then finally, after a few people throw in young kids, this man, Halleck, who is well respected, comes forward and is like, I don't like you, but I don't like Mance too. So, yeah, all right, fine. And all of them basically are like, okay, except for the Thens.
Yeah, they don't want none of this.
They just go back down into their holes. And
they were the ones that were like willing to go with Stannis too, because Stannis had made that Magnar, like, he was going to make him like sergeant of the wildlings,
right. I forgot
that
about
march with them.
Yeah.
So it feels like they're a little salty that they got denied the opportunity to do that.
What do you mean denied the opportunity?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly why they didn't march with Stannis. I'm assuming because once Jon was like, no, the wildlings stay, that's all of them. And Stannis was like, all right, fine. All of them stay then.
Oh, I forgot that Jon made that like part of the provision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I didn't really think about that. So let's see. Oh, there's a note from Austin. Not only do the Thenn view themselves separate from the rest of the wildlings because they have their own language, have lords, and use armor of weapons and bronze, but Sigorn's father was killed during the attack on the wall. I think there's also the question of like, maybe they wouldn't have been willing to fight for Stannis. Stannis was making a lot of presumptions on the way his offer was going to be accepted.
Well, the new Magnar, his son, was in the Solar with Stannis and Melisandre.
Was he? Okay.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Yeah, he was all up in there.
Well, then you know more than me, and I'm so proud of you. I always do this David Cup.
Now I'm like, am I right? Do I have that all wrong? Now I'm feeling like super self-conscious and people are yelling right now. They're yelling at me.
You. I believe you. So they finally finish handing out the food, gathering up these people. They get over 60 of them. So pretty decent bump. Not 63. As much as they need, but like something.
It's the same number, yo. It's the same number.
No.
It's 63.
Oh my God. I didn't realize it was the same number.
Added 63 more mouths, my lord.
Fucking George. Jesus. Yeah. You are really something, dude. So this is when Bowen Marsh again is just like, are you so sure that this is going to work out having women in amongst it? Because there's going to be some tumult.
He's a real fucking Debbie Downer, this dude.
He is.
Like in a very different way than Ed is. Like, Ed is like a funny Debbie Downer. This guy is just like, your plan's terrible. This isn't going to work. Have you considered all the ways in which this is awful? Let me recount them for you.
He always is coming in with, here's what's going to go wrong, but he never has a suggestion for an alternative that's like going to achieve anything, That's the shit that I really get salty over. If you are going to come in and tell me this isn't going to work, you had better have an alternative. I would never tell somebody their idea is bad unless I had something else to suggest. I just wouldn't,
He's over here not only talking about how you brought more mouths to feed, but he's also suggesting that these people are going to turn on us Like, they might help us fight the others. Yeah, that's great. But what if the giants show up? What if Tormund shows up? They're going to fucking turn around and kill us in our sleep.
I'm so tired of him.
Jon says, well, then we'll know what side they stand on, won't we? Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I don't know why that's so funny.
When he's like, well, what about if they try and rape these women? And Jon's like, these women know how to take care of themselves. And Bowen's like, so what if they slit the throat of one of the men? And Jon's like, that sucks for him. And I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing to be said about that except, well, maybe he shouldn't have tried to rape somebody.
Right? I think Jon is absolutely, that is the right answer.
Yep.
Right? Like, this guy, Bowen, is expecting Jon to be like, well, it's going to cause a war when they kill one of us. They're going to expect you to, like, get, vengeance for that act. Jon is just like, if they slit somebody's throat, it's probably because they were on that bullshit. And I don't know what to tell you, but sucks to suck.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is the end of the chapter, is then we'll know, so let us hope it never comes to that. Dun, dun.
Which makes me think it's most certainly going to come to that.
Who knows? Not I. I say that as if I'm being coy, but sometimes I really don't remember, so take that as you will. But yeah, the concerns from Bowen Marsh, are they valid? Sure. But I just want you to suggest,
are they helpful?
Something. Yeah, exactly. Something else then. What do you have to suggest? I feel like it wouldn't be a bad idea for Jon to like call a meeting and lay out the options to everyone really clearly so that they understand why he's choosing what he's choosing. And I know that to a degree, coming in to sort of justify the choices you're making as a leader is a bad look, because you're supposed to do what you do and not, but I also feel the attitude of everybody seems to be that of Bowen Marsh, where they're all like, I can't believe he's doing this. And I'm really wanting them to answer the next question. What instead? And nobody ever does. Nobody, they all have these like very flippant replies. Well, we kill them all. And it's like, do you think that helps? Do you think that's gonna, I just want longer term thinking, bigger picture thinking. And I don't know, maybe it wouldn't help, but I want him to do it anyway because I'm an over explainer.
Yeah, there's definitely a rule of thumb that like power doesn't explain itself, but I think the other thing too is the contrast between the fact that that's what makes Jon, air quotes, special, is that he does think long term, he does think bigger picture, and that is what elevates him, compared to his company. If everybody was big picture thinking, then there would be no conflict. Everybody would be on the same page. And that's the thing that I think that keeps surprising people about Jon, is that considering how young he is able to think in these bigger terms and these longer, big picture, long-term considerations that a lot of his contemporaries are just like hand waving, even Stannis, Jon, we had that wonderful scene where Jon is having to break down like what this shit really is, like what you're really facing out there. Yeah. Because we're supposed to understand that there is something special about Jon. Like, I make a joke all the time, especially during the fucking show, and in some of the earlier books too, where it's just like, how many times can Jon like come to the rescue and be like victorious? But that's what his deal is, though, right? That's who Jon is. Yeah. Like, that's the point of him, I guess.
His role. Yeah, I guess so. I also think that in as much as like power doesn't explain itself, that might be more applicable to like a different system than the Night's Watch has. They voted him in. It's clearly meant to be a little bit more democratic. So maybe
I
that
agree.
like involving them makes sense here where it wouldn't for, the Lord of the Manor.
Right.
Whatever
No,
you wanna
I'm
call it.
sorry. I do agree with you that I don't know how successful it would be, but I think that because John is built different, if a different leader would sit in that power doesn't explain itself space. And that's like, there's this weird tension going on with John too, where he's trying to fill the role of Lord Commander and not over explain, right? Because people need to listen to him, because when he says jump, they're supposed to say how high because he's the boss, right? But there's internally, I think that he really does wish he could just lay it all out so people could get what the fuck he means, understand what he's trying to do,
Yeah.
and that I think he's battling like which to be. Like, what kind of leader am I going to be? Am I going to be the kind of leader that doesn't over explain because I need these people to fucking understand that I'm the boss? But also, he is smart, and I think he wants the people around him to have an opportunity to be as smart as he is. Like, if they could just see the facts, right? If I could just shake them and get them to understand, they would get it, and then I wouldn't have to have these nonsense fights about every little thing,
I want to believe that, but we don't really see evidence of that in his head.
Of
him wanting to explain more.
You don't think so?
No.
I feel like there's a lot of frustration on his part that people aren't like getting it.
Oh, that's not the same thing as wanting to explain more, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I guess a little bit, kind of. Partially agree.
Well, everybody listening, tell me what you think, because I am curious. Like, do you think that John wants to explain? I feel like that I haven't seen evidence of him wanting to. And if he did, and he was choosing not to because he was trying to like choose a particular path of leadership, I might feel less frustrated because I'd at least feel like he saw explaining as an option.
Yeah.
But he never really thinks about that. He just thinks about how annoyed he is that people aren't getting it, which is that could be dealt with, sir, if you just, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like he is holding himself back from explaining more because he is unsure how to be in power and also like just lay things out for people, because it seems like a weakness, like somewhere he got the idea that you can't be a leader and be constantly explaining every little decision you make, and that he's,
like I said, I want to believe that, but I just don't see evidence of that.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely making some leaps, I'm not going to argue that there's evidence, but that's just how I'm taking it. That's how I'm reading his character.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that. Well, there's no new patrons this week. So I haven't got any names to read out, but if you are interested in a New Year's resolution where you support shows that you really enjoy and get access to other fun content, you probably should check out patreon.com/unspoiled. You can also do that and just become a follower of Unspoiled on Patreon for free and get updates on stuff that we're doing, because I post most big announcements on there to ensure that everybody gets them. So, and we've got quite a lot of new free followers, which is great. I just really like knowing that people are getting the information they need about reschedules, or, episodes went up late this week because of the holiday. there's just, often because I do so many different shows, I don't have the luxury of banking ahead of time the way some other shows are able to do. So there are podcasts out there that go up weekly and they never miss a week, even holidays, because they can do it on a different day. I don't really have empty days anymore to do that. So there are going to be things that have to be moved around frequently. And if something needs to be rescheduled, it's
happening.
It can be a real domino
effect. The nerve of life.
So if you want to know why something isn't up on time, or why there wasn't an episode this week, or if we mention a live thing that you're interested in, for example, the Witchy Book Club that we're going to be starting I'm going to announce the new book and what day and time we're going to have our voice meetup in Discord. Come to patreon.com/unspoiled and just become a free follower. But also you could become a paid follower, which is also extremely appreciated. I think that's everything. So thank you all again so much for listening. We're recording this like 2 days before the new year. By the time this goes up,
we are.
It's going to be 2024.
That is just bonkers.
We're coming up on the 12-year anniversary.
Oh my God.
Of Unspoiled. It's really
12 years for you, huh?
Oof. Old show now. We're one of the like elderly podcasts.
I'm still young.
There.
I'm still young and spry. What are you talking about?
I haven't aged a day.
I ain't got no 12 years in podcasting.
All right, everybody. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Reek and Jon, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.